This week in IT, Windows 11 Quick Machine Recovery finally reaches preview. Microsoft is planning a big update for the Start menu. Microsoft accounts are getting a new login experience, and Power BI users are going to be getting a big price hike. So stay tuned for all the latest news. Welcome to This Week in IT, the show where I talk about everything connected to Windows, Microsoft 365 and Azure. But before I get started today, I've got a quick favour to ask you. 57% of the people who watched last week's video weren't subscribed to the channel. Now, as we go live today, we're on about 11,520 subscribers, and I'd love it if we could push that up to 11,600 this week. So if you'd like to see these weekly news roundups from Petri.com, please subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell notification to make sure that you don't miss out on the latest uploads. I was talking a little bit last week about how Microsoft is likely working on the next version of Windows 11 that's due to be released in the fall of this year. So that's version 25H2. And this week, a user on Twitter called Phantom of Earth discovered a hidden feature in the latest Windows Insider Preview builds that enable a new version of the Start menu, and it's quite a big change. So the biggest change to this new Start menu is that now you'll be able to see everything on one scrollable page. As it stands at the moment, if you want to see all of the applications that you've got installed, you have to click a separate button that says all in the top right to see that list of applications. The new Start menu is quite a bit wider than what we have today. You can finally turn off the recommended list, which is something that Microsoft is kind of being forced to do from the EU. So that's something that will be coming in a build very soon in the stable channel. And now the pinned items is limited to 2 rows. So these are quite big changes coming to the look and feel and the way that the Start menu works. And it's getting more and more like really an Apple iPhone, that kind of mobile experience that many people are familiar with. So I think these changes are good. As I say, these are probably likely to be part of 25H2 that we'll see later this year. We might see the ability to turn off recommendations come sooner than that, but we'll have to wait and see when this feature gets rolled out. Let's remember back to summer 2024, July to be precise, and there was a global outage of Windows PCs caused by an update to CrowdStrike Falcon, which is the real-time detection system for scanning threats on usually corporate systems. Of course, CrowdStrike is a big player in the corporate space. They rolled out a definition update. It hadn't been properly checked, and it blue screened PCs around the world. And the biggest problem was you basically had to have manual intervention to fix this. So somebody physically had to go to each PC and fix the problem. At Ignite last year, Microsoft announced the Windows Resiliency Initiative, and one of the biggest parts of that was a new tool called Quick Machine Recovery. Now, the idea of this is that when a device gets stuck in the Windows recovery environment, i.e. it won't boot, then this new feature allows Windows Recovery to make a network connection to Microsoft's recovery services, upload the crash dump. Microsoft are then able to analyze that crash data and then send back to the machine any remediations that are potentially required to get that machine booted again. Now, of course, with the CrowdStrike incident, this is something that IT people had to come and manually do. But the idea of this is that this should be something that Microsoft could initiate automatically if something like this ever happened in the future. So that's basically how this feature works, and this is now finally in preview for Windows Insiders. As you might expect, IT pros will be able to enable this, disable it, or customize it. They'll also be able to provide network credentials to make a connection to the network and to configure things like timeouts so that if it fails, they can just stop trying to make the connection. And it'll be customizable via things like Intune and I suppose group policy as well. There's also a test mode built into the tool, and Microsoft has promised that within the next few weeks they will provide a remediation that IT pros can use to test whether quick machine recovery is something that really works for them in their environment. So this is something that isn't going to be enabled by default. Administrators will have to enable it, configure it, and make sure that it's set up and works. Microsoft has said that they are encouraging users to provide feedback via the usual channels and that they intend to improve the feature in the future. Much like anything, the proof is in the pudding, of course. Would this really work if we were ever faced with something like what happened with CrowdStrike last year? And I think it's just a matter of time, of course, before IT pros are forced to test this feature. So I do think that it's something you should at least look at, think about whether you would configure it and enable it in your environment, because it could be a massive time saver in the event of a big outage. Let me know in the comments below whether you think quick machine recovery is something that you would switch on and enable in your organization, and whether it would really help in a situation like what happened with CrowdStrike last year. We've talked a lot about passwordless and passkeys on this channel. Microsoft is trying to persuade users to ditch passwords and to move to a passwordless future. Not just Microsoft, of course, there are other big players in the passkey game like Google and Apple, for instance. Microsoft recently announced that they're changing the authentication experience for Microsoft accounts, at this stage just for consumers, but they've said from the get-go that if this goes well with consumers, then it's a feature that they're likely to roll into work and school accounts as well. So what exactly is changing? So Microsoft says that the steps for the sign-in and the sign-up process have been reordered to basically produce a more logical flow for the user. They're going to encourage passwordless right from the get-go. So rather than setting a password, they're trying to encourage you to essentially confirm your email address right at the very beginning and kick off this process. And there are some design changes as well here in terms of the way that it actually looks. So the login box is now going to be customized according to your local theme. So whether you're in light mode or dark mode, the branding of it is going to be improved so that the user is in no doubt at all that this is a Microsoft feature and that it's got Microsoft stamped all over it to give the user confidence that they're dealing with a trusted party, and to really make the whole process a lot more streamlined. I mean, if you've used the whole multi-factor authentication and passwordless setup process that exists for work and school accounts at the moment, it's a little bit clunky. It's not always the most logical or intuitive experience for end users. I mean, as an IT pro, and I think even they would struggle a little bit with understanding the way that this thing has been designed. So Microsoft are really working to simplify the whole process. Once users have confirmed their email address with a PIN code, then this is essentially going to allow Microsoft to have the basis to then allow users to easily enroll in the passkey feature, because it makes sure that the account is always secure and recoverable, and that's a really important step, as I found out late last year, that if you don't have a recovery in place, and this was actually with Apple, not with Microsoft, then it can be a really big problem to recover an account. And it should just be there as default. You shouldn't be allowed to enable these enhanced security features unless there's some way to recover from them. So Microsoft is making sure that's in place right from the get-go, and I think that's really important. Once they've gone through that process, then they will be invited by default to create a passkey. So this will be something that just happens. You're going to get that option. I'm assuming that, of course, Microsoft will allow you to say, well, I don't want to do that, I'll just go ahead and create a password, but they're going to try and persuade users, no, a passkey is is a much better alternative. If you're not aware, passwordless authentication essentially allows you to authenticate with a biometric gesture. So that could be facial recognition, it could be a fingerprint. If you don't have those kind of features, then a PIN code can also be used. And this is coming to consumer Microsoft accounts, to Windows, Xbox and Microsoft 365 initially. And Microsoft is saying this is going to affect over 8 billion users. So this is really important. You know, if they can get people off of passwords, it's going to significantly improve security. And of course, they'll be able to tweak this process as they get feedback and perfect it for corporate users. So, you know, I think this is quite common now with Microsoft. You know, as I discussed last week with the Copilot Plus PCs, I know some people in the comments said, well, they're perfectly capable for business. And I'm not, you know, debating that, but I still think that Microsoft is really testing these devices and these experiences with consumers first, and then pushing them to commercial customers. And of course, they're doing exactly the same here with this updated authentication experience. Power BI. If you're a Power BI user, then when your contract is due for renewal, you're going to be seeing quite a big price hike. So Power BI Pro licenses are going to go from $10 to $14 per user per month, and Power BI Premium is going to increase from $20 to $24 per user per month. So that's a 40% and 20% increase respectively. Now, Microsoft is saying that, well, there hasn't been a price increase like this for many years, and that this just reflects all the work that they've done on Power BI, and essentially kind of saying, well, we think that it's fair. It could be that Microsoft is trying to push organizations to use different subscriptions like Microsoft Fabric, which is the kind of data analysis platform for organizations, or move them to a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription so that you get a lot of this kind of Power BI stuff built into those things. It could be that Microsoft is hoping that will happen. It could, of course, also force organizations to look for alternatives to Power BI. But if there's a lot of investment there in the Power BI application, then of course that's something that can be really painful for businesses. If you got value out of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, because it helps get the video seen by more people on YouTube and to grow the channel. I'm going to leave you with another video on the screen where I talk about Windows 11 25 H2 and a change that means the Office applications are going to get faster. So do check that out. But that's it from me for this week, and I'll see you next time.